Now for part two of our lecture on file handling with the book code. I think Larry Ellman, the author, does a good job of covering the contents. I just like to go in and explain it a little bit more. So if we go to the script 5, which is list directories, we're going to see that it lists folders and files. And if we look at our actual folders and files here, you'll see this is very accurate to what you see on the left. I'll pull up my browser again. You can see that there's two script 1102 uploads and then users. So we have the ability with PHP to determine whether something's a file or a folder. We also have the ability to determine what its permissions are for accessibility, whether you're a user or a logged in person, someone who has access to the server through FTP, we can tell. And we also can tell file size and file s modified. So this is list dir. And first I'm going to show you how to do the default time zone set. If you look at this in php.net, they're going to give you a major city for every time zone. And for us, I think everyone is in California. Might have a few people in who have moved about right here at the Mesa program. But for us, this is the default time zone set, and it'll put everything at Pacific time. We have the search directory, the directory that we are going to be looping through, as a dot, and that means it's the same directory that we see that we're in. And this is the big command. If we scan the directory, we should get an array of contents. So let's go ahead and var dump those contents so we can see what scan directory does. Because there's a few of these, we'll do contents. There are a few of these functions that perform exorbitant tasks like scanning a file in a folder. So when we hit refresh, you're going to see, I put var dumps by accident, my bad. We're going to go ahead and change that. I hit save, and then the S came out. That's why that happened. But now we have this. So we have, this is what got scanned. Now notice there's a dot and a double dot. Those are invisible files that are in our folder, which we usually have to ignore if we're actually going for the files that are man-made, so to speak. So you're going to see in our code, what we're going to be doing is if is dir search directory item, if it is a folder, and a substring of that item of the first character is not equal to a dot, that would remove both the dot and the double dot. Then we'll print the item. So this is for all the folders. They have to be a directory, is dir, and they have to make sure that the first character is not a dot. So it's substra item 01. Item, again, being the value of every element of the scanned directory, which is in the variable contents. Okay, so once we close that list, we can focus on the files. So we're running a similar loop, and we're, instead of using dir, we're using is underscore file. And the same with the dot. So once this happens, we can get the file size with the file size function, but we have to point it in the right directory. We can't just do scalar item. We have to show it inside the directory so that the PHP function will know where the file is. Then we're going to put a file modification date, but we're going to format it with the date stamp. Now this is the full month, the day, the numeric day, and the 4-year year, the 4-digit year. So that's why it's a full month, the capital F, 2-digit day, and the capital Y, which is a full year. And then we can print the information for each one because we're inside that loop. Item, FS, and LM. And then we close our loop and we're done. So that's how to list directories through scandir. We can also use glob, which I'll cover in a separate video. Glob, that's another way to scan a directory. Another thing we could do is just open dir and read dir. So there's several ways to do this. I think scan is probably the easiest. If you're going to use read dir, it does the same thing. Creates an array of contents inside the folder. But you have to open the directory first. Okay, so let's move forward. We've done our quotes, we've listed our directories, we've handled the error handling of an upload. Let's go to the registration. So what we're going to do here is have a directory of users, and then inside that directory, we're going to put a name, an encrypted password, and then a time that they signed up. So the registration, we're going to create where we're going to store this, which is users and users text. And we're going to have the form action be empty so that it sends to the same script. We're going to have usernames and passwords with a confirmed password. And what we're going to do is send it via post method. We'll have a toggle var, a variable that starts at false, and if there's a problem, we'll flip it to true. You can do the other way too. You can have problem equals true and then flip it to false, but that really defeats the purpose of the meaning of problems. Right now, there are no problems, so problem is false. So if the post underscore or scalar underscore post username is empty, yeah, we got a problem. And we can enter the appropriate and output the appropriate error messaging. Same with passwords, same with whether the passwords are equal or not. If password 1 does not equal password 2, same specific error message. Try to keep your error messaging as specific as possible. I can tell you that when I was hiring devs, I would always look at that and see how meticulous they were with how they cared about their users. The more specific, the better. Now, if there are no problems and the file is writable, we're going to create some data to write. So subdir equals time with a random timestamp. So the time itself is the number of seconds since the Unix epoch. You probably learned a little bit about that in Chapter 8 and again in last week's homework. But that is a unique timestamp. The data would be username, a tab, a password that is SHA encrypted with a SHA-1, and then a subdirectory, which is that random timestamp with an EOL, which means end of line. So it's going to have that carriage return. That's why when we look at it, we get this. Name, SHA-1 encrypted password, and then the randomized date stamp. Got to have something random with that. So let me go back to our handy dandy users text. And next thing we'll do is we'll file put contents. We're writing to this file, which has to be the absolute pathway to it. You'll see that file is equal to dir/users text. So if we go in the same level, we see users and then users.txt. So we're going to put that, we're going to put the data, which equals all the information in that line. We're going to file append it and lock it, as we've already learned. Then we're going to make a directory. We're going to make a directory with dir and then the subdir. After that, we're going to print you are registered. So otherwise, if something bad happened, we would say can't register. And this is, please go back and try again for the original conditional if there's no problem. So, I'm sorry, if server method equals post, you always have to look at the indentation of this. Otherwise, we'll display the form. So that's the registration. Let's give it a shot. Let's just try it. So I'm going to go into my 6 registration. We'll go in here and click 6 register. And I'll do ksqr. And I'll do something like test. Whoops. I gave away my password. It's test pass. And we'll do test pass as well. And register. So now I'm registered. But what we need to do is look at what's in here. So I have a folder that equals this timestamp, and then my users txt should have the same number right here for the directory. So if you look, 168.168.20.971.487, say that quick, matches the folder name. So now I have a place to put my stuff as a user. So that's kind of what that's about. Now in the text, you'll see that chapter 7, or I'm sorry, script 7 is nothing more than the formatted users.txt. So we can go right to login.php here and see how it's utilized. So once again, we create a file and we have a login form below, username and password. And if everything goes well, we'll grab the data. We'll have logged in equals false because by default, we're not logging in. And then we'll add this. Any set for just the duration of this script, we will turn on auto detect line endings. That's so we know that each and every line here is a different user because we'll see a line ending at the end. So that's what PHP does. It looks for that \n, that carriage return, and then knows that that's the end of the line. So when I go back, we'll go back to the login here, and we look at our login script. We are going to fopen the file, and RB means read binary. So FP would equal that open file. And I want you to think of it as like a newspaper. And PHP is a person reading that newspaper. Right now, at this point, the newspaper is open and he's reading it. He's reading whatever's in there, whether it's text, ASCII text, or binary content. It really doesn't matter. RB is there for, R would work, but RB is there for anything in the file. Now, this is a very handy function. File get content separated values. Because if we look back at our user text, there's no commas there, is there? No, there's not. So what we're going to be doing is grabbing the file handle to the 200th character and then separating it at the T. Okay, so for each line, we're getting each line, and in that line, we're separating it at the tab to be an array. So line block 0 would be Larry. Line block 1 would be the encrypted password. Line block 2 would be the randomized timestamp. Interesting, right? It's an interesting way to go about it. This is such a good lesson for you folks because we're going to be doing authentication with MySQL in this course in a couple of weeks. And that should really prepare you for that. So all we're doing is looping around each line and grabbing each one as a array. So if 0 is equal to the username, Larry, Chris, whatever, and line 1 equals the SHA trim password, if they equal each other, then we're true, and we can just break the loop. And then we close the file. If logged in, we are now logged in. If it didn't work out, we need to output the values. So if you recall, I did KSeqr, I believe, and test pass, right? So let's give it a shot. I'm going to do KSeqr and test pass, and we'll hit that. And the only reason that didn't work was because I had changed the numbers of the form. So this is login. It needs to be 8 login. And I do that repetitiously if you've been watching my videos intently. Kind of weird, but that's all right. Okay, so KSeqr and test pass. And voila, we're logged in. So what we can do next, which is not done here by our author, is to set a session and say something like, okay, you're good. Almost like what we did with the week 10 homework, where we had a session for of age users entering a site that has alcohol advertisements and things like that. So there's no session in this point, but there should be. And then we can test the sessions when we're inside our website where the protected pages are. So that is part 2. Watch for another video in this module that goes in depth into all the functions that exist for file handling.